What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be talking about my first half game of the year nominees and winner, in addition to the second half big games that could get into the game of the year conversation, in addition to my own personal favorites. Because you have to remember, guys, there are the official game of the year awards. You have the Keeleys, you have IGN, you have various different websites that do it. Then you have your own opinion as well. So this video isn't to say one is bigger than the other, but simply going over some of my favorite games of the year. Maybe you guys want to check out some of them. And then, of course, looking forward to what we could expect in the second half of the year, because there's some good stuff coming out, and I'll give some predictions in terms of what I feel has a chance when it comes to most of the game of the year awards for some of the bigger places, and of course the Keeley awards. Now let's go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to start off with my number 6 game, and that is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is a game that I quite haven't finished yet. I put, I think, 30-40 hours into it, and I kind of tapped out at this point. Just because there was some issues like with the way that the game looked, and they did fix it, and I went back a little bit, but there was just so much side content and side quest stuff. I kind of got tapped out a bit. I'll definitely get back to it at some point, but I still feel that it's a solid game. It's good. I have seen what it's offered in terms of graphics and value and everything. So the combat in the game is great. There's so many awesome things. It's just some of the padding and some of the other things, the open world stuff, that isn't quite as fun to get through, but I still feel that it's a fantastic game and it's a lot of fun to play if you stick with it. Now, next up is Granblue Fantasy Relink, a game that had a very long development period and cycle, but it ended up being pretty solid, especially if you're playing on PC. They did a fantastic PC port of the game, and that's where I essentially played most of my time, was with the PC version of the game, and I really enjoy it. I think that it's a lot of fun. I feel that the characters are good. The combat is smooth. They have some great online multiplayer as well, linking up with your friends and playing. There's a lot of free content in there, and the game really opens up once you get through it and finish it. There's a lot of stuff that happens. So Granblue Fantasy Relink is a fantastic JRPG that maybe didn't necessarily live up to the highest expectations, considering how long it took for the game that was in development for so many years, but I still feel that it was a very good game, and you can still see some of that DNA of Platinum Games when they worked on it with some of the stuff that they implemented in the combat system. So Granblue Fantasy Relink, absolutely one of my top 6 games of the first half of the year. Next up is Unicorn Overlord. This is a game that absolutely will be in the running for me, or definitely could be in the running for me when it comes to overall game of the year. By the end of the year, I think that this game is fantastic. It's got so many things going for it, starting out with the art style. I love the Vanillaware Atlas art style that they do, the hand-drawn look of it, but also the flow of the game, the structure of it. It's a really unique strategy RPG where you're on the map and you're moving about, and like you can group together enemies, and it's a lot of fun to kind of put everything together with your own tactics and your teams and go about the map that way. Cool special attacks, great effects, really cool strategies that you can employ, a lot of variety. People are going to play the game completely different based on who you recruit and based on where you go and what teams and tactics that you put together. So I really enjoyed every bit that I've played of Unicorn Overlord. The game is so massive, I still got to go through and play it more. Absolutely one of my top games of the year, 100%. Now, next up is a game that I put a ton of time into, and that is Stellar Blade, PlayStation 5 exclusive for right now, at least. And this game is fantastic. There are so many good things about this game when it comes to the combat. It uses a parry system that is very well done, but it also has a really nice dodge system as well, and really cool special attacks. I mean, there is some limiting factors of it in terms of the upgrades and what type of abilities that Eve gets, and you can clearly see that they really prioritized certain things and not to have it really go too crazy or expansive with the tool set or weapons that Eve has, because it's definitely limited compared to, like, let's say Devil May Cry or Bayonetta or even the older God of War trilogy. It's just nowhere near as in depth, but I still feel that it's really good in terms of what they did with the game. The open world is kind of like a hit or miss. There are some parts that are really good, and it's not like a real open world, but the open-ended areas. Some of them are really cool, but then some of them are just completely linear and kind of weird to get through. So there are some really high highs with this game and some lows, but overall I feel that it's still strong enough with its presentation, with its music, with its style, and with the combat, because the gameplay is fun. It's super fun to shoot people up, super fun to kind of slice around and move around as Eve, speeding through the environments and everything and just fighting enemies that type of way. It kind of has like that Souls feel, but it's not really a Souls game. So I really enjoy what Stellar Blade offers, and hopefully they make a sequel to this game, because I think a sequel could really expand and get it into that next tier up with Devil May Cry and Bayonetta and God of War and some of the other pillars of the action games out there. Now, next up, and almost my game of the year for the first half, is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. This game is fantastic. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is the full package for a Metroidvania. Many people feel that it's just as good, if not better, than, like, let's say a game like Metroid Dread, or it's right up there with Hollow Knight or Symphony of the Night, some of the best Metroidvania games ever made. And I do think that that's praise is warranted. The combat in the game is fantastic. There is a ton of different skills and abilities. It's smooth, whether you're playing on the Nintendo Switch or the PlayStation 5 PC, doesn't matter. It's got cross save, so it's super cool to be able to take the Nintendo Switch version on the go, then also play your PS5 or PC version at home and have that all cross save. Everything moves over. To me, that creates better value and versatility with the game, but also just the game itself in terms of what it does. It's just a ton of fun to play through. And I think the story is also very interesting. The voice acting is done well. There are so many great things about this game, but for me, I love the level design, the powers, the abilities, the combat, and the controls. All of that just flowed. It looks like they took all of the best things about games like Castlevania and games like Metroid and Hollow Knight and all that stuff, and even like Rayman Legends, which was the same team that did that, and put it all together into one game to create something that people didn't really feel Prince of Persia would be able to do well when they first saw the game. So I really enjoyed my time with Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Absolutely one of the best games of the year, and will go down as one of the better Metroidvanias in the last number of years. But coming in at number one, and my first half game of the year, is Shin Megami Tensei V Vengeance. Now, some people say, well, wait a minute, this is a re-release of the same game, and I completely understand that, but it's quite not the re-release of the exact same game. Yes, you can play the original game in this game, but the Vengeance storyline, I'm 35 hours, 40 hours plus in at this point, and it is blowing me away with the additions and the changes. It almost feels like a completely new game. I love the fact that they actually added in human NPCs in your own team. You can use them and intertwine them with the different demons that you have, and they have more connections and storylines. It creates a whole different dynamic that simply was not there in the original game, and it's not like it's a little thing, it's a lot. And I was blown away and surprised by some of the changes and differences in the story. Instead of drawing out certain segments with certain characters and demons for longer, they actually just completely solve it right then and there, and then you move into something different. So there is a result that's somewhat similar but completely different at the same time. The different demons that they added in, the new Vengeance storyline with all the different demons that are part of their cult group, is very good. The fights are fun. The additions when it comes to the quality of life changes with the demons and how you're able to have unique skills for each one. So you might want to hold on to one of them compared to just constantly fusing them over and over is really cool, and makes more value in getting certain demons that you like, certain triple team attack abilities, and all sorts of stuff that they added to just navigate the open world better. For example, adding different rails that you can slide on to get to certain places and move around. Also, they added a dorm room, they added all sorts of stuff. So it's essentially a brand new game, because as I get more and more into the Vengeance storyline, the more that I see, okay, this is completely changed and new. Plus, they have a bunch of other secrets that I don't want to talk about when it comes down to it, but some of you guys have already played through and beat the Vengeance. I'm playing on the harder difficulty, so yeah, I gotta really grind and get better. But overall, man, I'm having a blast. This game is awesome and absolutely my first half game of the year. Now, let's get into the second half of the year. I've got about 5 or so games that I feel that definitely could be in the game of the year discussion for myself. Then we'll talk, of course, a little bit about the Keeley Awards as well. So I want to talk about Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven. That's coming out on October 24th. This game is looking really cool. It's a full high-end remake of the original Romancing Saga, which I never really played that game too much. I know I played it at one point, but I didn't really beat it, didn't go through it. So they're having a full remake of that. It looks really good from what I've seen so far, and I'm looking forward to checking it out. Visions of Mana coming out on August 29th. Absolutely gorgeous looking game. Kind of has that cute but ferocious type of look to it with some of the monsters in there. And it's great to see the Mana series come back in full glory and what they're trying to do with the graphics of the Xbox series and PC, PS5, PS4, whatever the case is. So I'm very happy about this game. And from what they've shown so far with the characters and the story, it looks like it's going to be classic Mana as well, with the Mana tree and picking certain chosen ones to go. But I'm looking forward to seeing some of the twists and turns with the story as well, in addition to all the different classes that you can access and what you can do there. Now, next up is Mario and Luigi Brothership, November 7th. This game just looks awesome. And if they're able to hit the previous highs of where the Mario and Luigi franchise has been before, I do think that this could be in my game of the year conversation. So Mario and Luigi Brothership is looking absolutely incredible from what we've seen so far. I think the art style really mixes well with the different bros attacks that they're doing in the game. My only thing for this one is that I hope that the story and some of the other side characters and other things that they do really holds up well. I would love to see a Mario and Luigi game up there in the 90 Metacritic like we saw with Superstar Saga, or right up there in the high 80s. Some of that stuff would be great to see at this point for a franchise that's not been around for so long. To have a strong comeback on a popular system like the Nintendo Switch could really prove to be great for the future of this particular series of games with Mario and Luigi, so we don't get massive gaps in between the releases. And I think so we see a future for it, because obviously this game is probably a lot more expensive to develop than the previous Mario and Luigi games. So it looks good so far. The music, the gameplay, the characters, the combat, everything looks good. So hopefully it turns out to be really good once the game launches later in the year. Next up, we've got Black Myth Wukong coming out on August 20th for the PS5 and PC. I'll be picking up a PS5 copy of the game. And yeah, so far, so good with this. They've got some more details that's coming out. People thought maybe it was like a Souls type of game, which there might be a little bit of that. But overall, this is an action RPG that's going to be friendly to newcomers, in addition to being challenging for those who want the challenge overall. There's a lot of different side quests in different areas. It's linear with extra different paths to go through, and it's going to have a lot of different combat options, weapons, different stuff for you to do as well. So this is not necessarily the Souls game that people first thought, myself included, that it would be. But everything that I've seen so far with the game looks really good. Looks like they're really pushing the technology when it comes to PC and PS5 graphically. And combat-wise, it just has some crazy scenarios that have played out in crazy different types of animations and gameplay options for you to use as the main character. So I'm looking forward to this game. Hopefully it's really good. It looks like it could be better than Stellar Blade from what I've seen, but we're gonna have to wait till we actually get into the mechanics and play it and the controls and the responsiveness. Having a top tier action game is not easy to make at all. So let's see if it all comes together when the game drops in August. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is also dropping on September 26th, and I don't think that's necessarily going to be in my game of the year discussion, but it could be. I want to see how compelling the Echoes type of gameplay gameplay is with Princess Zelda, what they do with the story, what type of options and combat that they have outside of what they've shown us, because I'm not the biggest top-down 2D Zelda fan. I kind of like more of the newer games, especially like with the open-ended type of titles like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, in addition to Wind Waker. But I do feel that this game could sneak in there if they do some crazy things with the combat, gameplay, and story overall. So I'm not sleeping on it, and I think that it is going to be a solid experience. Let's just see how far it rates when it comes to some of the other games that I'm talking about here when it drops later this year. And last but definitely not least, we're going to go over I'm probably thinking game of the year. It might be overall, and that is Metaphor ReFantazio on October 11th. This game is looking absolutely incredible. From all the games that are coming out this year, this game combines everything to me that has game of the year written on it for myself. It's got obviously great graphics so far. That's good, but that's not the whole thing when it comes to game of the year. But the look, more like the style, the aesthetics of it, the vibe of it, fits so well with what they're trying to do. On top of that, it's got a bunch of different gameplay options. You have these archetypes, which are essentially different classes in the game, and you can switch between them, and they all have different ways that you can go after you pick one. You can branch off and do other things. The variety within the combat is not only refreshing with what they're doing, but it vibes with overall everything with the game so far. And on top of that, you're going to have a bunch of optional dungeons in there. You have open-ended areas that you can run around and fight enemies freely in an open world. Kind of feels like Xenoblade Chronicles a little bit, but it has a hybrid action turn-based RPG system that to me just looks great. I know the Legend of Heroes series has done this a bit, but you don't see a lot of the major AAA JRPGs doing this. It's usually turn-based or it's action, and this one has a hybrid of it. So I'm very excited to see how this works out, being able to attack the weaker enemies on the screen just like an action RPG. But when the tougher enemies come up, you can kind of get the jump on them, getting a sneak attack, hit them a few times, then go into the turn-based battle. So I'm guessing they took a lot of time to try to balance that and make it feel good to play overall. So very excited to get into that and see how it works more. On top of the story, just looks like it's super interesting with this parallel or dynamic world where things aren't quite as they seem. You have a lot of different types of people. You're trying to unite them to vote for you to become the next king, as the previous king was assassinated. So definitely a good setup and premise. Looking forward to it quite a bit. Now, this is probably one of the craziest years overall for like the Keeley Awards, because I have no idea what they're going to pick so far. I have to wait to see some of the other games that are coming out, like the new Dragon Age game and some of those other things. And once the review scores come out, then I can kind of look and see what some of the journalists that actually have votes are saying. So right now it's too early to tell what games are going to be in there at the end, because there isn't a Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, all of these games that are just reviewing in the mid to high 90s or right below there. You know, there's not a lot of those this year overall, but I think that it's going to be interesting once we actually get to the end of the year and all the scores come out. Then we can kind of see and evaluate from there. But I'm giving you guys what I think personally. So for me, you can take a lot of the games that I already talked about with the first half of the year, add in Metaphor ReFantazio, see what Mario and Luigi does. And what's your first half game of the year, in addition to some big games in the second half that you think could absolutely challenge the first half games? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch and RPG videos right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.